Hello, everybody. We are live. Thank you for joining us. This is our Black Friday special webinar. We're focusing on e-commerce and marketplaces today, particularly the sort of the fraud these platforms see, what you guys can do about it to sort of keep yourself safe, and just a sort of general sort of big picture, really. Let's get straight into it. I think there are a few people joining from the lobby, so this is obviously an on-demand recording as well, so people can catch up after the event, but I think let's get ourselves started. My name is Chris Hooper. I am Director of Brand here at Veriff. I oversee all of our sort of thought leadership research and some of the big reports that we push out and that kind of thing as well. Also work very closely on our customer testimonials and customer success programs. So that's working very, very closely with our customers, particularly in the e-commerce and marketplace space, actually. We do seem to have a very big sort of cohort of those at the moment. Joining me today is my colleague, Vinny. Vinny, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Happy to be here and discuss this awesome topic. I guess I can also consider myself an avid shopper as well. So it's a great time. But my name is Vinny. I'm a solutions engineer here at Veriff. So what I do is I'm actually a team lead for the whole North American side of the business for our SE team. And I have the pleasure of sort of being a consultant with our customers, helping them test our service, integrate with it, and be able to share some cool stories about what they actually do. So that is a little bit about me.
I like that. Your position is pretty unique within Veriff, I think, actually, Vinny, in that you've got a foot in both camps. You're working very closely with us, with obviously with the go-to-market team, with the product team, but also you wear your customer hat as well, and so you sort of see firsthand the problems that they're trying to solve, I would say, and how best our solutions can be fitted into their systems and so on. So I think a lot of good insight to come from you later. I think we've got just a bit of a shameless plug here, actually. Our Veriff Identity Fraud Report is a big annual piece of research we do every year. The QR code is on screen now. If you want to scan it, that will take you directly to a pre-sign-up page. Essentially, what this report is, it looks at our customer interactions. So all of the interactions that our customers are having with their customers, we obviously see all of the verification sessions that happen. We bring all those together. We dive into them. Our data team is constantly sort of monitoring this information anyway. But they once a year they sort of let us in on the process to sort of show. To identify what trends are happening in the fraud world, what types of fraud are being seen by our customers, and so on. So if you guys want some, it's going to be published in the next couple of weeks, actually. So if you guys want to be first on the list to receive that, just scan the QR code, put your names down, and you'll be first to receive that. Will be a lot of the data that we'll be talking about today actually is from that report. So you'll be getting a sneak peek of it anyway. But as I say, it's a really good chunky piece of research, and I think that a vital piece of in the fraud fighter's armory, I would say. So let's get on to what we're going to be talking about today. So essentially, Black Friday is approaching. I think we're only probably a week or so away now. It's one of the big sort of retail events of the year, maybe the biggest actually, I should say, in collaboration with Cyber Monday, which is a slightly sort of newer sort of addition to the piece here. What we'll be talking about is what Black Friday is, what it means for e-commerce platforms in terms of the volume of traffic and so on. We'll be exploring the fraud tactics experienced by online marketplaces, and specifically what you guys can do to position yourselves best to fight those tactics. And then we'll be diving into how Veriff in particular can help e-commerce platforms. And I think Vinny will take that section. But let's just get us started. I'll sort of be speaking for the next couple of minutes, really, just on some data, just to set the scene, really, I suppose, and sort of give an idea of what it is that we're sort of setting up here. Now, of course, Black Friday, as I mentioned, is sort of the big shopping event of the year, big retail event. And it's what started off as kind of a US event has actually permeated across the globe now. I'm obviously, maybe tell by the accent, I'm from the UK. It's a really big deal here as well, as you'll see from some of this data. So what we're saying here is that Black Friday generated close to $10 billion worth in online global sales in 2023. I'm sorry. That's a 7.5% increase on 2022. And analysts are predicting that we could be up to sort of essentially surpassing the $50 billion target this year, which is something incredible, really. Cyber Monday is a slightly sort of newer addition to the retail piece, if you like. In 2023, Cyber Monday generated more than $12 billion globally in online sales. Again, a step up of 9.6% on 2022 figures. So you can see that both of these are growing. When taken together, what analysts are now calling this sort of Cyber Week, which runs from Black Friday through to the following Friday. And global sales there topped $38 billion in 2023, the most ever recorded. And it was also a record-setting year for the volume of online retail traffic as well. So that's not just transactions, that's just the number of people who are coming onto sites and so on. And I think one of the things to call out about this time of year is that not only are you getting regular shoppers, but you may be getting those once-a-year shoppers as well. People shopping for holiday gifts, people who may not have visited your site ever before and may not visit ever again, are sort of caught up by your marketing material and has kind of bought into the platform that way. So the sheer volume of traffic itself is incredibly relevant here. And just the last sort of stat on this slide is that analysts are predicting the $50 billion mark for Cyber Week this year is in sight. And I guess I say we'll find out in a week or so whether that is hit or not. Just diving into this data a little bit more, we've got some numbers here from the fraud report that I mentioned at the beginning, actually. So in the US, shoppers spent an average of $460 per person during Black Friday and Cyber Monday. This outpaced any other country by a considerable margin, actually. As you can see again on screen there in 2023, it was more than 200 million people in total made purchases during the Black Friday shopping season, and 134 million of those were shopping online. So that's obviously a growing percentage as well. The online retail space is something that's been booming since COVID, but as you can see, this number is tipping more and more in the balance of digital transactions. But it's not just the US. In the UK, where I am in EMEA, we had a 17% rise in Cyber Week online shopping figures from 2022 to 2023. And also in Latin America, where it's, again, a growing phenomenon, really. Cyber Week, I think, saw the biggest rises of all in Brazil and Mexico, year on year, pushing 20% in both of those countries. Now, that's a picture that's repeated all across Latin America, actually, but Brazil and Mexico were by far the standout too, which is, again, quite an interesting stat. And what does this all mean? We're talking about the volume of traffic being something that is if you like, the kind of what can mask a lot of fraudulent actions, I suppose. I think fraudsters, we know, are opportunistic. They tend to sort of strike when companies have their defenses down, and when companies are swamped with a number of people visiting, that's when they are most vulnerable, I would say. So you can see here there was a 22% rise in purchase scams. The average loss reaching £970. This is a UK figure, by the way, so that's around $1,200. This is due to fraudulent purchases that never delivered, and so shoppers were left out of pocket there. In the US, there were 11.6% increase in suspected fraudulent e-commerce transactions during the US holiday shopping season alone. And we sort of see, we're in contact with e-commerce marketplaces and our own customer base. And 60% of online merchants say they've experienced an increase of fraud in the last 12 months, and that there is a seasonal spike. So although fraud is on the increase all year long, and you can never ever sort of drop your vigilance, particularly in this period is when that vigilance is required, because 75% of them report seeing a surge in Black Friday and Cyber Monday as well. And just some final data, just to round off my little section here, just to get us into it. Impersonation fraud, which is obviously somebody impersonating, trying to be somebody else or using a false ID, amounted to 82% of all fraud this year, which is by far the biggest and most common fraud type. It's one that is particularly prevalent in the e-commerce marketplaces space, which is something we see a lot with certainly in sort of account takeover type fraud and things like that, which we'll get into a bit later on. This 82% translated to every 20th verification in 2024 involving someone pretending to be someone else, which is quite an astounding statistic, really. And it always just makes me think whenever I read this, where would those companies be if they weren't using Veriff to sort of validate who their customers are? I think some incredibly high fraud losses for one there. Okay, so this is where I'm going to sort of open things up to Vinny to help me out here a little bit. I would like to talk about the types of fraud seen by e-commerce platforms. Vinny, I guess that's a question for you to sort of kick things off. What is the type of fraud that you're seeing, in your conversations with our e-commerce and marketplace type customers? What is it that they're flagging to you as the most common types of fraud that they're seeing?
Yeah, great question. I would say online merchants, anyone in the e-commerce space right now, there's probably several different types of fraud that can impact them, and that's financially and also from a customer trust perspective. So a couple examples are account takeovers, you have payment fraud, of course, identity fraud, and then one that's more relevant from the shoppers like ourselves are going to be phishing scams. You're going to see those emails, you're going to see those click here, those messages that are going to be sent to you. But one that's especially relevant for today's conversation is going to be promotion abuse. And of course, this is going to happen when either bots or fake accounts will try to use discounts and special offers that a company is pushing to take advantage of some of these promotional offerings. So as you kind of alluded to before, Black Friday kind of creates this perfect storm for these bad actors to hide their criminal activity due to your surge of traffic that you're experiencing. So that is one that is really relevant for today's conversation that I wanted to highlight.
Absolutely, and I think we've got some of the data points on this slide as well here, which we kind of covered those on the previous ones as well. But it is really worth pointing out, I think, that authorized fraud in particular is something that's incredibly common in the e-commerce space. It's as it says on here, sort of 18 times the global average when we take all of the industries that we work with together. Authorized fraud stands out in the e-commerce space, but particularly also that this industry has the second highest rate of document fraud. And nearly half of merchants experience some kind of refund or chargeback abuse in 2024, which is, again, it's 1 in 2. That's an I mean, I think sometimes when we look at your percentages, Vinny, it can be a little bit abstract, can't it? But it's, I mean, you've actually sort of been on the front line of this, I suppose. What is it that you've seen in terms of the impact? So if a fraudster does manage to get through into an e-commerce site, what are some of the things that can happen? I think we've got a slide to illustrate some of this as well. Let me just skip on.
Yeah, I mean, especially seeing stats like that, you're sort of like, are those true? You have to do like a double take. Like, wow, that it can be that impactful. But actually, this reminds me, a few months back, I was on a call with a customer, and they were really deeply concerned about what they believed was an organized group that was creating fake documents and slipping them through. And we had our teams were very skilled in analyzing document fraud, look at these, and we felt they were completely authentic, but they were adamant that something was wrong because the background images were always the same, and what they witnessed on their platform was these users were always resulting in chargebacks, so it's becoming costly to them. It just wasn't adding up. And finally, then it clicked, and it was identity farming was actually taking place here. And what was happening were these individuals, they were going into legitimate spaces, and most likely it was like a doctor's office. They're walking in, giving their documents, checking in for just an appointment, and that person is taking their document and sort of probably into a back room, and then ends up creating new user profiles for this merchant. So because the documents were real and there's no photo of the user's face because they didn't request that, identities of these good people were just being hijacked in a matter of seconds. So in that moment, it became very clear to our customer how critical it was to capture a photo of the person themselves during the verification process, because they finally saw it's something that's going to protect us against these harmful actors. So especially during the season, being able to really prove that somebody is physically there, which is something, so simply adding that layer of protection can really prevent your business from being fitting into the bad side of these statistics.
Absolutely, and that leads into my next question, actually. And just on the subject of questions, if anybody listening does have any, there is a Q&A function. Just pop a question in there. They will be coming through directly to me, so I'll be able to see them. But one question I have for you, Vinny, just on that then is, we've talked a little bit about the potential impact. Obviously, there's financial loss is the main and obvious one, but there's also a reputational damage that goes with it as well. If you are, I think some of the research we published earlier this year showed that I think it's up to 80% of consumers actually will look into or consider a fraud record of an e-commerce platform before they sign up to use it. So it sort of shows that your reputation precedes you to a certain extent, and if you have a very robust fraud measures in place, that does go some way to sort of reassuring potential new customers. So on that note, then, what is it that sort of the e-commerce platforms can be doing here to sort of protect themselves from fraud? You sort of alluded to certainly including the selfie and a photograph at some point in the verification process. But is there anything else there that platforms could be doing or should be doing as a sort of a bare minimum here?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is, especially when it comes to reputation for your brand, that's kind of the key thing, because there's, I was speaking about it before, there's sort of two sides of the coin. There's the financial loss, and then there is the trust aspect.
Mm.
So when you're thinking of, the types of fraud that you maybe need to address, I would say, you want to start off with a couple of questions to yourself. How are we protecting our customers from account takeovers? How do we detect and block activity during these high demand moments? Look at the controls that you have to prevent redemption of like single use discounts and multi-accounting, and really just ask like the simple question, like, how are we verifying a legitimate user? I would say just by, as a business, regularly asking yourself these questions can allow you to sort of figure out what are your weak spots, to then shift to, okay, what are the type of solutions, when it comes to aliveness detection to stop synthetic fakes, or leveraging biometric analysis or behavioral analysis rather, and data insights so that you can identify suspicious activity, especially over a period of time. And really kind of the critical component in all of this is delivering a solution or a set of solutions that's scalable, because you're going to need to be able to have something in place that can adapt rapidly, but also be able to sustain that with sort of high demand.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. And I think that just to pick you up on one point there, and I think as we skip on to the next slide, which is around sort of the Veriff answer to this, I suppose, you mentioned having a set of solutions rather than a solution, which I think is a really important distinction, actually, because fraudsters, as we said at the beginning, are opportunistic, and they will sort of keep probing different areas until they find a weak spot, and then they'll exploit it to its maximum. And it feels to me, from what you've said here, the only way really you can sort of combat against that is to have a really sort of multifaceted, if you like, sort of fraud defenses, something that particularly stops account takeover, something that does particularly stop sort of multi-accounting or bot attacks and that kind of thing. And it's not necessarily going to be the right set, the same blend of tools for every platform or every company. So talk me through what we can see on the slide here. I know that Veriff does take that kind of multifaceted sort of fraud prevention ecosystem approach. What are some of the things we're looking at here then that can sort of make up this toolbox, if you like, that can help e-commerce platforms?
Yeah. So from the Veriff perspective, one of the things that we have is a very comprehensive identity verification solution. It's powered by very, very advanced AI and machine learning that can identify around 13,000 documents across 230 countries. So instantly being able to detect forgeries or inconsistencies, once again at scale, allowing you to have this safeguard for your platform, while at the same time having that global reach for some of your customers. One of the standout features that I have seen in my time here is leveraging a live capture with video recording, as this is a really kind of a critical component in that multi-faceted approach, as this security layer it's highly effective at detecting and preventing some of that new fraud that you're starting to see, like deepfakes, injected media, and just some general other spoofing techniques. And time again, it's a proven method. It can really help reduce fraud losses, and it's maintaining that nice, seamless user experience, because it's all stuff that's just happening in the background. But really, identity verification also goes beyond just like taking photos and videos. To have like a complete KYC process, you want to also focus on behavioral analysis and risk indicators. I tend to say this is like the string that ties everything together. With Veriff, we have the ability to sort of cross-reference your data, monitor patterns, identify the suspicious activity all in real time. And this can empower an e-commerce platform to gain to have protection with Veriff, but also you can take some of this data and use it as insights. So what we will commonly see is some of the customers that make that switch or start to talk with us, they're like, that area of identity verification was kind of this gray area that I didn't have much insight into, but now I do. And that really can help, once again, that broader KYC process for that multi-layered approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% concur with that. I think, the conversations I have with customers, one of the things I hear most regularly is that, it's our teams that are bringing things to their attention. So there is a type of fraud that they wouldn't know about, that we're seeing somewhere else in the world, or we're sort of, a certain set of tactics or certain tools being used. Generative AI, as you mentioned, is one that seems to be coming up more and more often. And so we kind of can help guide our customers in that way. And I think the cross-linking piece is super interesting as well, how we can kind of see what's happening in other industries and sort of apply it to e-commerces and e-commerce sites in this particular example. But if we've seen something happening in financial services, for example, or to dating platforms, or any of the other sort of types of businesses that we work with, we get a chance to sort of see firsthand and as in real time as that's happening, which I think is really, really valuable, actually. Just as a question in the chat, actually, just that I think is worth throwing to you at this point, because I think it's actually very, very good that you're here, because it's talking about how the ease of implementation. And I think we've got Black Friday is upon us in sort of 7 or 8 days. So how quickly can this happen? How quickly can sort of so if a business is doing its fraud prevention in-house, for example, how quickly can they switch over to Veriff and get up and running in your experience? Well, obviously you've dealt with tons of these integrations now. So just talk us through what sort of the average times are, or some of the quicker times and things like that.
Oh, this is my wheelhouse. I mean, as a solutions engineer, this is what I do day in and day out. And luckily, I integrating with Veriff into your platform is a very straightforward and efficient process. And I mean, for most customers, they're doing it in 1 to 2 product sprints, and that's from like a 2-week product sprint. So essentially, very quickly, you can have this up and running. The fastest I've seen someone is actually in less than 24 hours. So tackling complex fraud doesn't have to equal a really difficult process. So we offer a range of SDKs. You can use native web, you can use mobile web, iOS and Android. So essentially, whatever best fits your systems, we can integrate into, and we have documentation that offers very good, clear guidance. You have a dedicated team, like a solutions engineer, that's going to assist throughout this. And we could offer that insight that we've seen just for industry standards and best practices. And one of the products that we've actually been implementing more recently to tackle account takeovers, which is definitely a big topic of today, is Veriff's biometric authentication service. So once again, with busy seasons, Black Friday, you'll frequently see like an uptick in users returning to your platform who weren't there before, and they forgot their password. It happens all the time, but did they really? And is it really them? So what we're seeing is a shift away from those outdated methods like KBA, knowledge-based authentication, like what was your first car? And adopting biometrics. So it allows account recovery to be honestly simpler and faster. And it secures accounts in a much better way. And one of the surprising things that we've been able to see is that trust that's being built with your customers, because they know, okay, this is a company that really does care about my identity, my account, and I could be away for a long time and it's still going to be secure. And the beauty is just integrating that so quickly has really allowed customers to tackle those old methods that are very risky and shift to something that's very competitive.
That's good to hear, and I think because it is any change can be terrifying, right? I think that's one of the things. So if you're moving from one platform to another, or one sort of verification provider to another, it can be a very daunting prospect. Especially, I guess, if you don't have the technical expertise in house, which is lots of businesses do, especially smaller platforms, right? So, is there anything you could talk about there, Vinny, that is kind of in that space of the sort of low-code, no-code type approach, where we can sort of help out those type of businesses and provide that technical expertise for them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things is when integrating with Veriff, I like to tell our customers, especially for those who are a little bit maybe not as technical, but essentially with just 3 simple steps, you can have the ability to generate a verification session that's going to be leveraged over web. You can send it over an email, send it over a text message, and have the user go through a really simple and easy process to get verified. And you'll be able to get all this rich data, and it's happening instantaneously. So you don't have to worry about, how am I going to fit this into a broader solution? Is this something that's going to be able to scale and meet my customers wherever they are, on whatever devices, whenever? So it's something that is much more straightforward than really traditionally these IDV services used to be. So I'm more focused on strategic customers and working with those bigger things, but what I've been able to see from some of my other teammates, and how companies with not a lot of resources, one developer, are able to just say, oh, great, this is easy, this is simple, I can do this. And that's really kind of the thing that allows us to empower any business, from small I mean, if you're a little Etsy account to something that's much bigger, like your Amazons,
Yeah.
in that space.
Yeah, it does. Again, this is a thing that I hear regularly in sort of customer conversations that I'm having. I'm very fortunate in that when I speak to people in our customer testimonial program, their customers, they're really satisfied with our service. Obviously, I get to hear all the good stuff, which is great.
It makes my job so much easier.
I know.
And I share that with our developers. I'm like, thank you. You make it so easy for us to just allow them to build and not be
exactly. Yeah. And I think one of the things we often say, right, is that fraud prevention is the thing that we're good at, right? So the thing that the marketplace is good at is not fraud prevention. That's something else. They focus. They should be able to focus on the things that they can do to generate their own revenue and growth for their company, and leave the fraud prevention bit to us, because that's our speciality. It feels like that's an increasingly common sort of way of thinking at the moment. Okay, I think we're rapidly approaching time, actually. So I know that I'll just have a quick look keep an eye on the questions as well. But I do have one more slide, which is to sort of just show the breadth of organizations that we work with across the different industries that are our main focus. Obviously, you can see marketplaces in there with some of the bigger names that you would recognize there as well. But it's obviously financial services, cryptocurrency, iGaming, mobility, and HR and recruitment as well. I think these are all ones that are kind of in our wheelhouse. And as Vinny mentioned earlier on, I think working across such a broad customer base gives us a really good global, first of all, but also just a constantly evolving picture of what's happening in the fraud landscape. Like we are, quite literally the first to see new types of fraud as they emerge and things like that. And that's because we've got this gigantic sort of network, really, of customers that we work with, and really sort of keep us on the front foot with things. And so I think that's is where we want to wrap up. Actually, I think we're just literally coming up to time. Vinny, any sort of final thoughts from you? I know you sort of mentioned around the sort of the ease of integration there, and the sort of the speed with which people can do so. Is the advice for folks, if they are thinking of giving Veriff, just to kind of give it a try? I mean, what would you say to someone who is sort of mulling this process over at the moment?
Yeah, one of the things is really it's great to learn about this stuff and to listen in, but really seeing it work and seeing its capabilities is what allows you to see, okay, this is how this is actually going to help us out. So one of the things that I'm lucky to deal with is working with different prospects that go through the POC and the testing process, which we do free testing, and we're able to do many different types of tests to fit what you're looking to evaluate. So you sit down with us, we go through those options, and very seamlessly, just as quick and easy as it is to integrate us, you don't have to worry about dedicating developer resources. We give you a login to our portal, you can go in, you can try it, you can test it out. So I think that is, it's like when you buy a new car, take it for a test drive. It's nice to see it online, it's nice to read about it, but you really got to get behind the wheel. And luckily, getting behind the wheel with Veriff is a pretty easy process.
It certainly is, and I think that's another thing that I think sort of stands out in the market, actually, is that that testing is essentially free as well. We've got a you can go onto our website, you can start testing out Veriff immediately. There's nothing stopping you at veriff.com. There's a 15-day free trial that you can explore. Some of the features, not all of them, I should say. There are sort of other things that you do have to have a proper conversation with someone like Vinny or from Vinny's team, just to really sort of get the full value from it. But in terms of just the bare basics, you can get started very, very quickly and very, very cheaply. So that's something I'll leave you guys to explore. Again, just another plug to our fraud report content that I mentioned at the beginning there. Keep an eye out for that. That will be coming soon. But we are bang on time. So Vinny, I want to say thank you to you, first of all, for joining. I know your time is precious. So thank you. There was some really good insight from you there. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here. It's a good break from the usual stuff I get to do, to be a part of the marketing team and interface with you guys and get to talk about these interesting topics. And like I said, this one fits me well. I love to shop. Next week, it all starts.
Okay, we'll have to have one in a couple of weeks' time so you can show off some of your new outfits or something, Vinny, that you're going to pick up. So how about that? Cool. Okay, well, look, thanks for doing that. I really appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. This will be available on demand shortly, too, if you want to catch up, as you missed here. But other than that, I think we can call it a day there. So thanks for your time, and we'll catch up with you next time.
Have a good one.